Hello everybody and welcome back to part 2 of Resident Evil HD. We are playing as Jill Valentine. Last video we went through the game's introduction and we pretty much left off on us being on our own completely. So our first goal is to basically just look for any sort of clues as to where Wesker might be, where Chris might be, pretty much anything, because right now we don't know much of why we're here, how we get out, where the rest of our team is, you know, those sorts of questions. Now, there are not going to be very many doors in the mansion that you can unlock at the moment, so our first major goal is going to be to find a key that will allow us to explore more of the mansion. So we're going to go back to where we found our buddy over here. This is our comrade Kenneth. We saw him getting eaten in the beginning of the last video here. And he was clutching a videotape that we can listen to much later on in the game. And don't worry, Kenneth is not going to turn into a zombie, so we can walk past him without any sort of fears of having to kill one of our fellow comrades. Now, as I pick up items in the game, the important thing to remember is that item drops are dependent on the difficulty. So depending on the difficulty you play the game on, there's going to be more or less items for you to pick up. On harder difficulties, there are going to be more enemy spawns and less item drops of ammo and health. And for those of you who are more used to seeing the newer Resident Evil games, then you might be in for a bit of a surprise, because this is more of the classic Resident Evil formula, which is heavily based around puzzles and more detracts from fighting all of your enemies head on. The idea is really to try and save your ammo and your health, because they don't really give it out like candy like they do in some of the other games. So because I'm playing on easy, I can be pretty liberal about using some of my items. I'm not going to be too worried about it. There are a lot of enemies that you can just completely avoid. As you can see, these zombies are pretty damn slow. So if I wanted, I could have just saved all of those bullets and completely walked around him. The only problem is that until you defeat the enemies, they are going to be in the area. And if you are walking through areas often, then they will definitely be in your way. So the first item we're going to pick up is that arrow. And with that, what I'm going to do is go back to the main hall, because this is a key item, and it's going to allow us to get our first major key that we're going to be using to unlock the doors in the mansion. There are 4 different keys that we can get in total, and each key corresponds to a certain number of doors in the mansion. Now back in the dining room, I should also probably explain, because I haven't talked about it yet. The way that you save in this game is to write your progress down on one of the typewriters. And if you pull up your map, as you uncover areas in the game, it'll actually show you where typewriters are. So when you're in a room, you'll know if it's an area where you can save. The only catch is that you're going to need ink ribbons in order to save. So ink ribbons take up spots in your inventory, and they are limited. So you're not able to save all the time like you would in some of the more newer games. So just keep that in mind. If you have an ink ribbon in your inventory, you can just walk up to the typewriter and save your progress. And there are no checkpoints or autosaves or anything in this game, so saving is really important to remember, especially if you have made a lot of progress, because if you don't save, you'll go back to your last save if you are to die. So very, very old school. And what I've done is I've come outside. This is sort of the little kind of graveyard area, I guess is what this is. And most of this is blocked off for now, but what we need to do is come over here. And if we examine this tombstone, a tomb engraved with a picture of an angel, there's an indentation in the shape of an arrowhead. So then what we can do is we can examine our arrow, and what we can do is we can snap off the arrowhead itself. And then we can put that into the indentation. Boom! First puzzle solved already. Now obviously that one's pretty easy. We are going to be getting into some puzzles that are much, much harder. But prepare to see puzzles start to finish, because that is pretty much the gimmick of most of these older Resident Evil games, is just a ton of puzzle solving. So down here we can take the Book of Curses, and we're going to examine the book, and on the back there is a key. So let's remove the key. This is one of our mansion keys that we're going to need. And the Book of Curses is just going to explain a little bit about a puzzle that we're going to be doing a little bit later. I'm not too worried about that right now. I'll talk about it when the time comes. And if we examine our key, there's an engraving of a sword. So this is our sword key. Alrighty. So we will be coming back to this room much, much, much later. We'll just pick up the key for now and go back to the mansion. And we will start unlocking some doors. So the first door we're gonna go ahead and go through is the big door adjacent to the dining room. A couple of things to do in this room. The first thing is we're gonna examine whatever the heck that shiny thing is in that statue by pushing the shelf towards it and using it to stand up so we're tall enough to actually reach whatever the heck's in there. And this is in fact a map, so without actually having to uncover the map as we go, we can see every single door in the first floor of the mansion. And what's really nice is this is also going to be coded by doors that have been opened, which are blue, doors that are not opened and need a key, a specific key, which is in red, and then the gray ones are doors that don't need keys. So that's really nice because that will kind of guide us along and will help us remember which doors we've opened, which ones we haven't, and which ones we need specific keys for, which is really, really nice. At the end of this hallway here, we have a dagger, which is a defensive item. So this will basically allow you to escape momentarily while grabbed by an enemy. And there are a couple of different defensive items. Jill and Chris both get daggers, and Jill gets a stun gun. And then Chris's secondary defensive weapon is flash grenades, so we'll be picking those up as we move along. And what's really nice about those is that they don't take up inventory space, which I'm a huge fan of. So you can see there, we're just going to stab that zombie using the dagger we just picked up, and that is essentially what they do. So that can be pretty darn useful. So this is the first door we're going to use our sword key on. And we can push 2 dressers in this hallway for a couple of items. There's a dagger here to replace the one that we just lost. And if I pull up my inventory screen here, you can see that it'll be in the defensive item slot, but not actually in my inventory, which is really, really nice. So we can actually keep track of how many defensive items we have as well. The first time you come in this hallway, that window will break a little bit. The second time you come through here, it will shatter. So just keep that in mind. You'll be in for a bit of a surprise the second time that you come through this hallway, but for now we're safe. So I'd recommend picking up those items before moving on. And where are we now? Let's take a look at our map. We have a couple of different places that we can go, but I am running a little bit low on inventory space at this time, so I think what I'm going to do is just make my way towards our first save room, and that will also be a pretty good place for us to stop. And this is a bathroom. There's a couple of different bathrooms in the mansion. Usually you can unplug the tub and drain the water. Most times there's items. In this one, we have our classical bathtub scare, which never gets old, in my opinion. Such a classic horror moment. You're okay, Jill. All that's in here is really a dagger, so you can completely ignore this room if you want. It's nothing too important. I do believe in Chris's campaign there's an old key in that bathtub, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. I definitely do not know Chris's campaign as well as I know Jill's. I know hers much better. So this door here we're going to go through, and this is going to take us to one of 2 safe rooms in the mansion. And just keep in mind that this door that leads to this safe room has a limited amount of uses. As you go through it, it deteriorates further and further. So we're going to try not to use that door too much because I don't want to get locked out of actually using the shortcut to come here, because it's a big pain in the butt to have to go around every single time I want to use the safe room. So I also like to dispose of any zombies that are in and around my safe areas because I don't like having to keep running into them. And it does take quite a few bullets to kill these zombies, so that's what I was sort of talking about. The game really encourages you to sort of avoid enemies if possible, because if you try to kill every single enemy, you are really going to run out of bullets very quickly, and that's going to be a big problem. Because there are boss battles in this game, just like any other game, so it's really key to save all of your ammo and health for those tough boss battles that we run into. And when you run into safe rooms, you'll be able to tell that there's a nice, peaceful, tranquil music, which is just music to my ears. It's such a nice sound. And in all of the safe rooms, we usually have a typewriter where we can always save our progress, assuming you have ink ribbons. And you also have your item box. So your item box is where you keep all of your items that you're not currently using, that are not in your inventory. And the item boxes are linked in each safe room. So every single safe room will have an item box containing the same items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put away some of my items here that I don't need. For Jill, I don't use the knife. I usually just use my firearms. So I'm going to put the knife away. Some herbs. I'm going to keep my gun and my ammo, as well as my sword key. Now in my game and in my inventory here, I have the closet key, and this is an item you get after clearing one campaign one time, and this will allow us to change Jill's outfit. So I'll probably go ahead and take this key out and unlock the closet at some point, just because it might be fun to change Jill's outfit up a little bit here and there, but I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. And in your inventory, items stack, so it will allow you to not use up all of the slots in your item box, although there are so many slots that I just don't think it's possible to fill up this item box no matter how much you try. So there's that. We're also going to be picking up the canteen in this room, which is an item that we're probably going to be using in the next video. I'll probably showcase what that does. There's also these fuel canteens filled with kerosene around the area. And certain rooms have these, and I think you can refill your canteen a couple of different times. So in order to use the canteen, it has to be filled with fuel, obviously. So for now, I'm going to put my canteen away as well, because I'm not going to be needing that at the moment. So you can see I have a lot of inventory spaces available to me, which is going to be really nice. That will allow us to pick up items as we go. Now that we're in a safe area, we can continue on in the next video exploring more of the mansion. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope that I will see you next time.